Our panelists have been introduced. They are an incredibly esteemed, distinguished group with an amazing pedigree in technology, now turning that to data and AI. So we'll get straight into this discussion. As was introduced, what we want to talk about is how companies are actually getting value from AI and turning what has been a significant number of pilots into scalable value. Charamporn, I might start with you, if that's okay. You've had an amazing career in technology as a CIO, and you've seen waves of technology in multiple industries. How is this technology different? As a board member, how are you seeing technology, how are you seeing boards and executive teams prioritize and find the value from AI as a technology?
This technology, one thing that we notice is the amount of speed and the improvement was like tremendous. It's like a exponential curve. And especially from the Bain point of view, we are a service business. And for the service business, all service we deliver to the customer is just a series of workflow. There's nothing else. And it all started with, so all department is just workflow. All start with the customer giving us something, documents, paper, a copy of documents, etc. And so if you look at it, it's right in the area where the AI could do best. So yes, the board of directors has a lot of concern before the mythos, right? And after the mythos is even worse. So you're right. Everyone is up in arms, especially from top down. Not too much from bottom up, but I'll tell you later a story about it.
Interesting. Peng, one of the things that we've observed is just the need to actually rethink how work happens. Mm-hmm. You've spent many years in the field of loyalty, and you've designed, you've run extraordinary loyalty programs for a whole range of industries. You now have Minden.ai. How are you rethinking the experience of loyalty, the workflow associated with loyalty, mm-hmm. now that you have AI?
Probably look at it from both internal and the external perspective. Internally looking at the organization, and externally looking at how loyalty program will change the way they engage consumer. Right? So internally, probably give an example. I mean, we have 200 over partners in our coalition loyalty program. So just imagine one partner, maybe in 1 month, give one request to our marketing team. That's a lot of requests. In a traditional workflow, I mean, a partner bring a request, our account manager will bring to the marketing department, and our marketing department will write a brief to the agency and produce a creative and get approval. That process takes like weeks and extremely inefficient. With AI, when we started Gen AI adoption probably like 2 years ago, I mean, slightly better. Instead of using the agency, our marketing team internally is able to produce these creatives. But that is still the first step, what I call kind of like using new technology to fit the old work process. To push this further, what the team is doing now is really, instead of our marketing team kind of building creatives and copywriting, they are building agents, doing a copywriting agent, doing a creative agent, but empower the account managers when they talk to the client. The account managers can use the agent to actually produce the creatives they want, the copies they want. So with that become a redesign of the entire workflow process. Really, the marketing team, instead of being a production house, they are now an enablement house. And the account managers can actually produce that, significantly uplift the productivity. So similarly happened with our analytics team, using the same example. But that's kind of really, we look at it, not only using AI to kind of like fix the traditional workflow, but redesign the workflow around it. Externally to consumer, I guess, the way we look at it is the human-machine interaction modality.
Yeah.
I mean, if we look at 20, 30 years ago, there's always a software layer and there's a hardware layer. I mean, 30 years ago, the hardware is your computer and the software is your browser. And the last 20 years, the hardware becomes your mobile phone and your software is your app. But looking forward with all the AI is coming in, I think what we see is the hardware layer will gradually move away from your phone to your wearable, while software will move away from the app to the agent. So that poses a challenge, and especially every company we have this role, UI UX designer, and that role need to reimagine, rethink themselves. Instead of looking at how the app design is, how the UI UX will optimize the user experience, the question that we throw our designer look at it is, right, how does customer perform this particular task without touching the phone? And if it's in the glass, it's the agent, how does that work? And we try to reimagine, redesign our app to be agent ready, to be wearable ready. So that's kind of really reimagine with what's coming and to get ready for the agentic world.
So you're redesigning the experience, you're redesigning how workflows work. Do you find you have to redesign how jobs actually happen inside the company and the sort of the perimeter of different jobs inside the company?
I think it's almost becoming, there is a lot of individual contributors and in the organization, especially for like small startup like ours. But gradually, all these individual contributors will still start to having their own agents. And I was just talking to a personal friend in OpenAI. He said something very, very interesting. And I mean, everybody can build agent, but it doesn't work in day one. It's just like you get a fresh intern joining your company in day one.
Yeah.
You need to spend time training your intern. And the same with the agent you build, you need to spend time actually managing and training your agent. So almost like in the agentic world, everybody become a people manager.
Yeah.
Instead of managing people, you're managing and training your agent.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So it's a complete redesign of how you think about experience, workflow, and jobs now that you have agents in those jobs. Saj, you've spent a lot of time in manufacturing, many years. Are you seeing the same thing in manufacturing where we're going from sort of sprinkling AI across the factory to try to create benefits to actually redesigning how the work happens?
Yeah, so to give you a background, AI is not new to manufacturing. When I first started, we worked on the first generation of list-based, rules-based engines in manufacturing to drive specific workflows for processes. Of course, then we moved into classic DRL, and now we're moving to Gen AI. I think the challenge we have today is, are you looking at incremental productivity or actually transforming the way companies make things? I think we are at the stage where we are still at incremental. We haven't crossed over to the area where we can actually use AI to make it a competitive advantage for manufacturers. And that's because of many things. Of course, awareness, knowledge, training is one area, because in manufacturing you still have people who've been around for 30, 40 years, still ingrained ways of doing work, SOPs that are fixed, harm to people, safety is a big issue, the regulations. So with all those constraints, I think we have to manage how AI works in factories. And that, I think, is one aspect. The second is the use of large language models in manufacturing is not a good fit, essentially because they're trained on language, not on numbers, or what we call time series data in manufacturing. So looking at the newer generation models, that's number one, especially the newer reasoning models. But we also have to look at how you combine multimodal models into manufacturing, because manufacturing is not just data, it's vision, it's sound. So bringing all of this together is the next realm of what we're going to do in AI, and that's where I think you will see big changes.
Yeah. So it's happening. You've had AI for a while. It's probably a little slower than in some of the information industries that Chengpeng, Charamporn. Where are you seeing the opportunities in financial services?
Definitely. If you look at when bank lend to the customer, in the past, we have very little information about customer. We only have when they come and ask for a loan. And that's only one time upfront. But after that, you don't have any engagement. The data not flowing to the bank. Whatever the customer is doing during the months, during the day, we have no idea. Until they start not paying, which is too late. But now if you look at the number of transactions coming through, I bet you that on your bank statement 5 years ago and today, the number of transactions is probably times 5 or times 10. At least in Thailand, wherever you go and buy coffee or whatever, you just scan, right? So every transaction, you know exactly who's doing what and when. So the behavior, we will notice a lot before something happens. So in the past, if you ask about the skills, the collection department did not have information, so the skill is one thing. You only go after it when it go bad. But this one, we have rich data. Now, we don't have anyone who has skill to analyze rich data, and this is where the new skills come along. All the workflow will be different. All the collection now could start instead of 90 days in arrear, maybe within 30 days, we start to notice something, and the workflow will need to be changed.
Yeah. So very distinct changes happening. Chengpeng, one of the things that our clients say to us is they've got a lot of data. Increasingly, AI means that they can use new sets of data, unstructured data, but they're finding it hard to get control of that data, to use it effectively. You process and you use enormous amounts of data. That data often comes from consumers or from the organizations you work with. How are you getting real value from data in your business?
As a coalition loyalty program, we kind of cover like half the Singapore adult population. We know what they buy in the supermarket, where they use taxi. So there's definitely a lot of data there. But if data doesn't get translated into action, it's just noise, right? And I will probably answer this question from probably short-term, medium, long-term perspective. Short-term, I think with the technology with AI today, it significantly accelerated the data to insight transformation. You no longer need to wait for, in the past, I mean, if the client has a question, they approach our account manager, then our account manager has to go to the data team, which is always a very lean team. I mean, then there's 200 requests in the queue, and by the time they get the insights back, I mean, that's like a week later. So that whole process now can be significantly shortened. Again, very similar to the first question, then our analytics team, instead of playing the production role, they now actually build agents and they write skills so that our account manager can use the skills to actually query directly into the database to get insights. So that acceleration of the data to insight transformation naturally translates to acceleration of the action, and which realize the value of the data. So that's kind of what everybody sees in the short term. And I'm sure a lot of companies are already doing. In the midterm, what we are trying to do is really what we call training enterprise memory. And so we're a small startup, so luckily, so everything is on Google Suite. And if I have a question on a particular account, I mean, last year I will be asking my VP, then the VP will be asking the account manager will go and pull out the latest report, and that's kind of like a 1 day, 2 day process. But now I just ask Gemini, ask the workspace, show me the campaign that we run for 7-Eleven last month, then the Gemini will generate the result immediately. So that decision cycle are shortened, but this is only as good as how much data you have in that system. So if we look at enterprise data management, it's typically data sits in a few places. Your email, which Gemini have access to directly. Your chat, Slack with MCP, your Gemini can access, or your cloud can access directly. But there's a whole chunk missing, which is the meetings, the conversations within the office. So I think before lunch was looking at the cloud, and which is an amazing device. But we didn't have that. I didn't know that now. But before that, so we were doing a project, really, how do we really getting all the conversations into a database that our AI can actually retrieve? So we made a habit, I mean, every meeting, and basically we use Zoom to record. Even though everybody is present, there's nobody remote, we still open Zoom to actually transcribe and record the meeting. So that gradually will feed into the same knowledge base that kind of like our Gemini or cloud can have access to retrieve email. Over time, it will build up a stronger enterprise knowledge and to really produce additional insights. So that's a process really. I think the key thing with AI today is significantly accelerated the conversion between for unstructured data into insights. So that's what we're seeing in the midterm that's going on. Long term, I guess AI will increase additional channel for data capturing. All right, so taking the promotion example, let's say today we want to sell Heineken beer. And so our approach is we go to the database, run a segmentation, look at who's buying beer other than Heineken brand, buying other beers. And we push them a promotion and via email, via push notification, which 99% of people don't read it anyway. But I guess in the future, when wearable become mainstream, it opens up a new data capturing point and timing. When you're in the supermarket, where you're looking at Carlsberg beer, maybe that's the right moment Heineken can serve you the offer. So that's kind of like really, whenever there's a hardware change, I think that's opened up a whole new way of data inflow into the system. So when we look at currently how we plan for the organization and how to use data, we also really plan for what are the new possibilities with the technology change can open up for.
Yeah, it's a fascinating thought of sort of the new types of data that you can collect. Serge, I suspect in manufacturing that's even more the case, that there are new types of data. You have data technologies, you advise your customers on data. What are you talking to manufacturers about in terms of using the data they have today, but also finding the data for the future to improve their businesses?
Yeah, before that, maybe we can talk offline and have an answer to his office problem in terms of getting data. We have a solution.
Oh, lovely.
But coming back to manufacturing, so data, if you look at it on paper, it sounds like a perfect problem where you have lots of data, MES data, ERP data, DCS data. But the reality is that if you look at data in any manufacturing shop floor, whether it's your streaming data from your control systems, or whether it's your maintenance data, which may be in some maintenance system, or whether it's your laboratory data, quality data, which could be a different system, your SOPs and procedures are normally documents. Then you have your ERP data, your production orders, your production planning, production scheduling systems. All of these are silos. None of these exist together. So that's the number one problem. Second is creating context out of manufacturing data is a difficult problem. So the ontology that we speak about in the IT world with ERP has been well established for many, many years. So we all know what a business system, an ERP system, should look like, what should be an ontology from order management to running MRP to production orders. Take any platform, they will have a similar ontology. But when you come to manufacturing, it varies from subvertical to subvertical, so semiconductors to electronics to chemicals. But also within that same subvertical, let's say I'm working with a pharmaceutical company in Singapore. I go to another location, and the data would change completely, right? So these are all the real-world challenges in terms of what kind of...
Lost our sound from Serge.
Yeah. Streaming. Yeah.
Give you a second. Just in terms of
Okay, there's a mic coming.
Something
Yeah.
back on.
it's
It
on?
came, yeah.
Okay. So going back to what I just...
I think it's on.
Done.
Yeah. So it's talking about the different silos of data and ontology problem that we have within manufacturing. So I think that needs to be solved today, and that's something that every company is trying to address in terms of what would be a standard ontology model that you could bring into any sub-vertical, a pharmaceutical company or a semiconductor company or an electronics company. That way, that then defines the template through which you can start feeding different sorts of data that brings the context in terms of what you need. The third problem that you have is it's not just the data, and that's what everybody does to most of my customers. Let's go build a data lake, right? And that's what they all do. Collect all the data, put it in a data lake, and then what? So the key issue is how do you drive that into a decision-making process? So if your decision-making process is driven by a KPI commonly used called OEE, which is the overall equipment effectiveness in a plant, then you need to go down from that top KPI and then go down to see what's impacting that. And then that drives what you need to feed in to drive a specific quality, equipment uptime, or throughput, right? So that's what we need to do. Somehow just go build a data lake is not going to solve your business problem.
Yeah. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done on data to get the structured data, the unstructured data working, starting to collect new sources of data to organize around potentially an ontology. Charamporn, the other challenge that we're hearing repeatedly is just about governance and controls, particularly as agentic AI is now coming into the organization, and being able to use AI responsibly within the organization, customers' data responsibly, for instance. You've sat on board risk committees, you've seen technology transformations. What's your view on how organizations need to be thinking about getting their governance and risk processes in order for AI and agentic AI, and speeding up the process of getting AI into the operation of the business?
Well, on top of that question, the last quarter of last year, the Bank of Thailand already issued governance guideline, AI governance guideline for the bank and financial institution to use, which means they've seen some high risk somewhere in there. And one sentence that they told us is that the accountability is at the board level. So it's not the CEO or the first line anymore, it's the board of director, everyone. Now, I suppose the AI come with a lot of opportunities, a lot of new ways of doing things, but most innovative idea and new development always come with something new, better, faster, etc. always come with risk as well. So if you think about if this is a car, this could be a car that could go like 400 miles an hour, but basically, if your brake is not as good as your ability to drive, then you're in trouble. So basically, that's what the Bank of Thailand sees. And so every application in the bank, either for internal staff or from external, especially for the customer, everything has to be according to the BOT guidelines on the guardrails, etc. And now the more we have the application, the AI application, agentic AI, etc., we have to make sure that in every step of the way we just comply with that.
And how do you see the board's role in this process? Because there's a balance between getting the value from AI and also going fast enough. How do you see the board's role in getting that balance right?
Well, the board always concerned even about the cybersecurity days, but once the announcement of my thoughts one day after that, we have a board meeting, and
Yeah.
one of the board members just raised right away, said, what does the bank do about it? So everyone is very concerned about what are the risks that comes with all these new capabilities. Yes.
Yeah. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because now it therefore means that for you as a board member, you have to understand this technology, you have to understand the risks associated with it, and you need to make sure that you're being advised appropriately for that understanding. Such in manufacturing, it's not just virtual damages, it's physical damages that you can create with this technology, and it's an incredibly powerful technology. What are you talking to clients about, your customers about, when you think about governing AI, making sure that they have the controls in place? How much of this is human? How much of it needs to be built into the platform?
So within manufacturing, there's a third dimension, which is physical AI. I believe there's sessions on that somewhere here as well. So we look at the world of manufacturing as a Venn diagram of 3 areas. One is, of course, the people, which in manufacturing, obviously, there's a large number who are employed in most factories. The second is the role of agents in those factories. And the third is the presence of robots. Both traditional robots that do specific tasks, as you see in automotive lines, or AMRs or warehouse robots that we see increasingly in most warehouses. But the third generation, which is basically what we're seeing in humanoid robots that can do work alongside humans. And this is still an evolving field because humanoids are still not able to do a lot of activities in manufacturing, even simple tasks. A task that you might think is trivial for a 5-year-old, like opening a bottle of milk, for instance, or a carton of milk, is extremely challenging for a robot. We had a partner from Korea who demonstrated that about 4 or 5 months ago, which actually caused a lot of excitement in the area because that's where we're seeing the transition from fixed welding kind of activities to more complex, where you get tactile haptic feedback. And that's not easy because a human hand has got, I don't know what, millions of sensors that actually provide the feedback, which we don't have today. So once you get to that stage, I think you'll see more presence of the robots in manufacturing. So this is a combination of these 3 that we look at and how we address that. In terms of the impact on manufacturing, I think we got to look at, in our world, if you get an answer from any kind of LLM, yeah, it's a bad answer, it's hallucinating. But in the manufacturing world, it can cause real damage, equipment failure, bad product, or even people getting harmed, right? So we have to kind of drive that within the regulation of what is a safe operating zone, where do you allow these models to play, where do you have a human in the loop, or HITL as they call it. We always have a human in the loop when it comes to manufacturing decisions. We never take a human in the loop out of the equation, at least for today. And there are many reasons for that. I mean, for instance, if I take an FDA approval process for a manufacturing line for pharmaceuticals, for instance, there are certain GMP guidelines that have to have certification process, etc. I can't just have an agent go run that. Has to be a human. So we have to work around those things. That's why I think we need to have agentic control, you need to have the guidelines around which you work, and lastly, the human in the loop.
Yeah. Where are you helping your customers to then actually build controls into the technology? Because there's the human in the loop, but the technology is moving faster and faster. You also have to build into the technology.
Yeah, for us, I think number one, the data is always grounded in the sense that everybody knows what RAG is, right? So we're always grounding the data in what you see in manufacturing, whether it is the time domain of the last 6 days or whatever, right? So you always ground it in that data. So whatever answers you get is based on what it's seeing in the plant. Second is you have to have some level of agent management. So we have something called Agent 365, which is basically a governance tool to manage all the agents. Because very soon we'll see agent sprawl within enterprise because it's so easy to build one. I mean, I can build one in 5 minutes using GitHub Copilot. But that's not what companies want. You need to have control. So within the governance framework that we have called Agent 365, we govern how agents are built, deployed, secured, to make sure that such things don't happen. I think these are the two things that we look at in terms of how we manage the governance of AI within teams.
That's very helpful. And then the last thing that we're hearing a lot about is leadership. Chengpen, if I can come to you, you run a business, you're the CEO. How do you see your role in the organization at ensuring adoption and making sure that you're getting value from AI and managing the risks?
I would say there's a couple of stages. I think it's easier, we run a startup, so how we look at it might be very different from maybe a large bank look at it. So the first question is really how do we quantify value? I probably will put that as a kind of like secondary objective. I think because all these things start acceleration is really about Q1 this year. I think the last 2 years, everybody see the technology as promised, but it's like January this year onwards, kind of people see, yes, it's serious. So I've been pushing the team really go try things first. I mean, don't worry about kind of the return, because if you even haven't tried it, nobody knows. But I kind of like really also very directly kind of inform the organization, not trying is not option.
Yeah.
So that's the first. Second, I think after 6 months of trying, I mean, our board did ask the question. I guess every board start to ask the question. With all these pilots have done, what exactly is the return? It's not easy to quantify at this stage. We did some trials. So what our team did is we look at, so currently about 50% of the code committed by our product engineering team are AI assisted. But I mean, 50% is just a percentage. What does that translate to in real productivity gain? It doesn't mean, does that mean the team kind of like work half the day and then take the other half day off, right? So we did some more old school method. We look at the Jira tickets and the size, t-shirt size, the tickets, and we measure, we compare quarter on quarter in terms of the number of ticket closure, and use that as a proxy, not 100% scientific, but we see roughly, I just got the number last week, we see like quarter on quarter, 31% improvement in terms of number of tickets closed, adjusted by the ticket size. So visible productivity gain, and this will continue with the product gets more and more, AI product gets more and more mature, right? So that's just from a technology deployment perspective. I would say there's a bigger challenge in terms of the people element. And naturally, every organization, the team will have two spectrum. There's people like do everything using AI, jump onto the latest model. There's also the other camp just like refuse to touch it, right? On the people side, and there's also an in-between camp, basically worry about what if I use AI to automate everything, what happened to my job? That's a very natural concern in all organizations. So on that front, I thought it's important to really lead by example, and as a people leader. So I do a lot of reading personally. I do kind of like play around with the technology. So every single opportunity, like venture stand-ups, or staff meetings, all the management meetings, every opportunity I get, I try to share what I learned in the last week. Any new technology I see, any new podcast I read, and just like a 5 minutes sharing. But that kind of pass the message, this is important. And your CEO is really talking about this in every single meeting. And the whole management team gets it. And that kind of gradually influence the culture.
Yeah.
So I thought these are, and the one last principle I see is, I guess, most of people will try some form of AI, but those people stop using is probably because it's nice, but it doesn't solve my problem. The reality is the technology today doesn't solve 100% of your problem. If you expect, just ask a question and get it done, not so straightforward. But the mindset is, how do you, if the AI can solve 70% of your problem, the target operating model is not a pure AI fully automated do its own. The target operating model is achieve a human-AI collaboration. And how do you insert yourself still in the process where AI does 70% of the job and you still do the 30%? That's still a 70% productivity gain. And that's kind of really the target model everybody need to have in terms of building agents and automate your workflow. And without that mindset, you try, it doesn't work, you give up. So I thought these are the kind of important points when we really try to influence the organization to go on to this journey.
That's great. Charamporn,
Yep.
you are on the board of large organizations. What's your expectation of the leadership team, the CEO of those organizations?
The organization like us is 18,000 people. We need to drive the N-1 and or N-2. The problem now is how are we going to ensure that they first not focus on value yet, just see the opportunity first. Because AI comes along with so many things that could create opportunity. So basically, it has to be a top-down education. And so we have quite a few rounds of program to ensure that they understand the opportunity. Because if they don't drive or set the goal for their organization, it will not move. And then once they set the goal, then Bank's problem and my problem is to ensure that their troops are ready on the skill sets, etc., so that we can drive to realize value. But I think that's a good challenge, and I see a lot of good opportunity for organization our size.
Yeah. We might close it there with just, I'd go through each of you and just ask you if you've got one piece of advice that you might give to people here on how to get value from AI in an organization. Saj, maybe I'll start with you.
So I'd go back to advising CEOs and start using these tools. For me, when I look at organizations or myself, as you go higher up the organization, you lose the creativity angle. You create PowerPoints maybe. But what I think you can do today with these tools is through very simple natural language, you can actually experience the joy of creating assets, creating an app, creating a HTML page. Once they start experiencing the joy of creating, I think that can then transform your workforce. Say, I'm playing with this, I'm using GitHub Copilot or Cloud Code or whatever you want to use, and transfer that enthusiasm to have the other workers so it spreads to the organization. If you sit there and dictate, it's not going to happen.
Yeah. Peng?
Maybe I borrow a quote from Mark Cuban, and I thought it was really interesting. There's really two types of human beings. One is use AI to accelerate your learning, and the other type is use AI to stop learning anything altogether. So it's really about AI can really help everyone into day-to-day work, but don't just outsource everything to AI. You are the one thinking, and it's actually for you. The productivity gain is to help you to have more time to learn more things rather than just stop altogether.
Charamporn?
I would advise that the CEO or the head of business to focus on the underlying assumption that allow your business to exist today, whether that assumption has changed or not. For example, if you assume that the speed of the data is 24 bits per second, maybe you're only stuck with the short message. But if you go high speed, you can send video, etc. See what AI have changed the assumption, because the way your company exists today, all the process is based on the limitation of something, such as technology. And once the limitation there, the business unit just assume that that's how things need to work. But if your competitor start to see the change and they adopt it and you don't, then you need to learn quickly.
Yeah. So review the strategy as the CEO. Charamporn, Peng, Saj, thank you very much. It's been great.